Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trek Talk with Tech and Kirk. I'm TechMan16,
And I'm Strange Kirk.
and today I'd like to talk about the two biggest mobile games that Star Trek has to offer. In fact, I think there's only two mobile games that Star Trek offers anyway, and that is Star Trek Fleet Command and Star Trek Timelines. And today we're going to talk about various styles of gameplay between one and the other. What are some similarities? What are some differences, the style of gameplay, the paywalls, the community, and try to provide either a recommendation of what type of game a certain individual will play, or just allow you to see and kind of understand what the other game, if you're playing one already, has to offer. Just for basic knowledge. What do you think, Kirk?
I think so. I think it for someone playing one game that maybe is not too sure about the other, maybe they've seen one and they don't want to commit to it. It might be a way that they don't feel like they have to go through 3 hours of tutorials to learn about it. So you can kind of give you some insight on what you're looking forward to if you're going to try out that game, to try to give you a better understanding of the style of gameplay it is. Because whereas they're both Star Trek themed, they are two completely different styles of gameplay. And sometimes people may want to commit more time to their gaming, and for those, one may be better than the other.
Exactly. And Kirk, you brought it up before. If your blood pressure goes up playing a single game, you want to stop playing the game and maybe check the other game, especially in the Star Trek mythos, if you will, because there's such a rich background of source material that can be used.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start off with an overview of each game. Kirk, why don't you take us through Fleet Command? I know some people that are listening to this already know Fleet Command and already play it, but just for our edification, Kirk's at a higher level than I am. Kirk, I believe you're 31.
Yeah, 31. Waiting on going to 32 once I get a few things taken care of first.
All right, and I'm 24, so I got a ways to go. So why don't you take us away and tell us all about Star Trek Fleet Command?
Star Trek Fleet Command is of course, it's a mobile game, available through the Apple App Store, as well as the Android market, or what do they call it now? The Google Play Store. And it is a real-time strategy game with a Star Trek theme. I say that because I know you and I have talked about it before off the air, several times. It's a very stereotypical real-time strategy game in that you have to collect resources, various kinds of resources. You have to spend these resources based on your particular needs or wants. The need for these resources increase as you increase in level, and as you increase in level, more options become available to you. So when you start the game, it takes you through a long tutorial with a couple little missions and how to build your ships, how to upgrade your station, which is, of course, your home base. That's where you're going to be researching and building the components for the station that will increase your abilities for maybe combat, mining, or even being able to speed up the research that you're doing or speed up the building that you're doing. And so where to begin on that's kind of difficult, because one of the reasons why it's so appealing to me is that it is such a difficult game to get the hang of if you're not used to that type of thing, because there's so many things to do. As I said, you have to mine resources. You have to mine these resources. There's different resources. There's common resources like tritanium and parsteel and dilithium. These are things that you use to upgrade your buildings. You spend it on your researches that will increase your mining speeds. It can increase your defense capabilities in combat. It can increase your defense capabilities when your station is defending itself against an attack. Yes, people can attack your station. They can steal some of your resources. So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot that comes into play. And I enjoy it because there are many different ways to play the game. We'll cover this in another episode, but there are people who play without spending a single dime, and they do enjoy it. There are people who spend what seems like their life savings playing this game. And then there are people that I may fall into where occasionally I may pick up something if I have the spare change laying around, or kind of as a once a month kind of deal, to kind of help boost my gameplay because I do enjoy it and it's fun. So as you start out,
as a way to help developers, right?
Yeah, right. So we can get some more of this wonderful content that we have. And so when you start out, you're, of course, low level. They're going to teach you how to mine. They're going to teach you about your combat. There are certain things that you can't do yet to kind of help you get a hang of it. You can't attack people for a little while. They can't attack you until you reach a certain level. You can't get your base rated until you get to a certain level. It helps you kind of get a footing, establish yourself, get a feel for how the game works and how to defend yourself, and also how to strategize when you're trying to attack other people to take their resources, things like that. In that, it's also a very team-based game. So you can play solo, but it's going to take a while for you to level up because there's a lot less sharing going on, such as if I have this particular resource that I'm mining and I'm done with it, I can go and then I can pass it on to you so you can have it, so you don't have to go out and try to find one. And then there's the alliances where you are a member of a team. And in this team, you have people from all different levels. And this comes into play when it comes to when you're building things. They can assist with speeding up how long it takes. Because every time you research, every time you build, every time you tier up a ship, it takes time. And the only way to shave the time off of the original allotment is to either spend some latinum to speed up, which a lot of mobile games do, or you can have your alliance mates they have a help button, and that'll help shave some time off of the amount of time it takes for that research or building or ship to be completed. So it's very versatile, and you can play it how you want to. That being said, because there's so much going on at once, this game is probably going to be more suited to a little bit more of what people would consider a gamer. So if you're someone who just likes to every now and then pop open Candy Crush and play a few minutes, or Angry Birds, throw some birds at the thing every now and then, there's not really a need for you to keep checking back so many times throughout the day. For the most part, this game's probably not going to be for you. There's a lot that goes into it if you really want to progress and get good and become more powerful. You're going to have to check back multiple times per day. Especially when you're mining resources, because if that little counter goes to 0 and somebody sees it, they're going to blow your ship up and take your node that you're mining on. So it requires a lot more time and dedication. So if you have a very busy life, big family, you got a lot going on at the end of the day, things like that, this may not be the game for you. I'm sure you could play it and you could still enjoy it, but don't expect to be able to achieve a really high level in a short amount of time, because you're not dedicating that much time to it. It's fun. It has its quirks just like anything else, but it's very time intensive. You also have events, like most games will. You'll have events, daily events, weekly events. Sometimes they'll even have month-long arcs, like they have one right now for the Outlaws. And every day you have a certain amount of time you need to spend in trying to achieve the objectives to gain the points that not only benefit you because you get some resources from it from completing these events, but it also benefits your team. So it's very much a team effort. I would highly recommend it for people that have more time to dedicate to it, or people who like real-time strategy. One of the reasons that I was drawn to it initially is because I grew up playing games like Age of Empires, Command and Conquer, StarCraft. So strategy-based games where it's not just one way to beat a level, that interests me, because I can play how I want to play. There's no right or wrong answer necessarily. So all that being said, check it out. If you are interested in those types of games, I would highly recommend it. But just remember that as you increase in level, your progress diminishes quite a bit the higher and higher you go. So you end up running into what we were talking about, paywalls. So obviously you can do a free-to-play option where most of the things are available to you, but you really have to grind for them, and you're really having to spend a lot of time. And then you have other people that are like, you know what? I enjoy the game, but I don't want to spend that much time doing that. That's ridiculous. I'm just going to pay $20 or $50 or $100 or however much it is so I can get it now. So you have many options to play. There are definitely politics that go into this game with your different alliances. You can go to war with other alliances. You can have allies. You can set people as allies, other alliances. And for example, the alliance that I'm in, we have 3 other allies, and we all share the same kind of housing area, and we can defend each other and things of that nature. So it's fun. But with that being said, if you're more of a casual, kind of open up the game every now and then and play type of person, I would highly recommend Timelines, which I am sure that Techman's going to be able to tell us about, because he made it a lot further in Timelines than I ever could have dreamed. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to him and tell us about Timelines and how it stacks up and compares to all the things that I was talking about Star Trek Fleet Command.
Thanks, Kirk. But before we get to Timelines, let's spend a little bit of time going back to what the resources that you need to mine are.
Yes.
And what you need to upgrade with.
And it's so difficult to talk about because there's so much that goes into this game. You have your basic resources, like I said, your parsteel, your tritanium, and your dilithium. And those are resources that you can lose those. They can be raided from you. So if you don't shield up your base, or you're not online to defend yourself, then those can be taken from you. And it's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you. And it's happened to every player that's been playing it for a while that's above level, 15, I think?
Yeah, and 15 is when your base can be attacked
and raided. So there's nothing like waking up to go to work in the morning and looking at your phone and seeing you have been attacked, and you open up your notifications and there's like 48 of them. And you just know you're about to log in and your lunch has been taken. And so then you have to go back into, well, now I got to go back through and do more of these events. I got to go mine some more of these what we call RSS. It's the common resources. Now, that's your basic resources. Then we get into the materials that are ore, crystal, and gas. Those materials are required for a multitude of things. Certain research may call for common crystal, common gas, common ore, or it may be uncommon of those 3, or even rare. And those you have to get through mining. They're called nodes. You have to get through mining those with your survey ships. And those are kind of the most important currency in the game. The regular resources, like we talked about, the tritanium, dilithium, and the parsteel, those are important, don't get me wrong. But these other ones are how you're going to level up your big combat ships. You're going to require some of those resources. For example, I have a Romulan Centurion that I'm working on right now, and it requires 800 uncommon gas. To put that in perspective, you have a refinery in your station, and this refinery, once every 10 hours, you can use some of your raw materials that you have mined, your gas, your ore, your crystal, and you can attempt to refine them. And randomly, they will either give you common, uncommon, or rare. And depending upon the level of research or the level of building or even the level of ship is when it's going to call for those resources. For example, if you've just built a ship and you're trying to tier it up from one tier to the next, it may call for common resources, which, as the name suggests, they're a lot more common. As you progress, you get up to maybe your tier 3, tier 4, it's going to start calling for uncommon. Once you get up to where you're getting to where your ship is maxed out, you've upgraded it almost as much as you can, but you're getting up toward the top where you have a few more components left, it's going to call for rare. And as the name suggests, it's extremely rare to get these, even through refining. The vast majority of those resources that you're going to get are going to be through completing events, or, as we said earlier, through the people that are just going to pay for the little booster packs that they sell in the store, where you're able to get maybe 600 uncommon at once. But these get expensive. So the free-to-play option is going to take you much longer. Those resources that I just discussed, the gas, the ore, and the crystal, those cannot be raided from you. So they're safe. Someone could attack your base and clean you out. That stuff will not be touched. And
don't forget, there's 2-star, 3-star, and 4-star.
Exactly. So this is another thing that I'm getting into now. That I've discussed those materials. You also have 3 tiers of those materials. So you have your 2-star resources, which are used up until about level 20. Level 19, because level 20 is when you can get your first 3-star ship. And those are mined and refined, just like I described. Then you get up into, once you get up into the 20s and even the 30s, you're working with 3-star materials. Those are the majority of those materials are going to be for your G3 ships, your 3-star ships, and up to when you become friendly with a certain faction, like the Klingons, the Romulans, the Federation. Once you're able to obtain their warships and their mining ships, those are going to be used to upgrade those. And so once you move on from, you and I are both right now in a G3, a 3-star zone, where our ships and all the things in our station call for 3 stars, 3-star materials. Once you get up above level 39, which is beyond me. Side note, we're trying to get someone on to interview about some of the G4 materials because I don't even know that much about them. Once you get into that, now it's a whole different set of materials. So those G3 materials basically become unusable, like the 2-star was when you went to 3-star. So as you progress, the type of materials you have to mine, you still need gas, ore, and crystal, but the rarity of them and the ability to get them, to obtain them, becomes more and more difficult.
And then you have data nodes or augment space.
Augment space, data nodes. So these are specifically, let me stop right here and just go ahead and go through the spiel about factions. So when you start the game, you're an independent space. You're not really doing anything that has to do with Romulans, the Klingons, or the Federation, which are your 3 main factions in this game. As you progress, and once you get closer to level 20 and so on, it gets to where you can enter their space. So you can enter Klingon space, you can enter Federation space, you can enter Romulan space, and you can start doing missions for all of those. If you decide you want to do work for the Klingons, your reputation with the other 2 factions will go down. So let's say for example, I started with the Klingons. Klingons were my favorite race in Star Trek. I started with the Klingons. Since I was working with the Klingons, my reputation went into the negative with the Federation and the Romulans. If you obtain a low enough faction score, let's say, a reputation, rather, with a particular faction, when you enter their space, they will send ships to destroy you. And it becomes difficult because each faction kind of represents a particular resource. For example, Klingons, their resource that you can find in their space is predominantly crystal. The Federation, it's predominantly gas. The Romulans, it's predominantly ore. So you can see where this poses a problem, where if I'm working with the Klingons, but I need ore and gas, and I need to mine those resources, well, I can't just send a ship to that particular faction space, because they'll blow my ship up. So then there's another strategy that we have to talk about, where maybe I have to send another ship to attack the ship that's trying to attack my survey ship while I'm mining, and it gets very difficult. So that's my spiel about factions, and each faction has its own ships that you can get, its own abilities, both positive and negative. So those are the main factions. Then you have the augments, which are Khan. If you know Khan, the genetically engineered people from Earth, they have their own space where you have to, their resource is mining data. And you have to construct their ship, the Botany Bay. You have to enter their space, and you have to mine data, and in turn use that data in their faction, quote-unquote faction store, to get different officers, different materials like plutonium that you can use for upgrading the Botany Bay, upgrading the hijacked ships that are available. Again, each one of these things I'm talking about can be its own episode, so it's so difficult to cover everything just in one. Just want to give you a brief overview. Then, not only do you have data, you can also mine latinum. So there's another resource. Latinum is used to speed up repairs. It's used to speed up the timers on the things that you build, whether it be your components, your ships, and it can also be used to replace some of the common resources like titanium, par steel, dilithium, and the common ore, gas, and crystal. You cannot, however, use latinum to replace the uncommon and rare materials. So that has to be mined or obtained through events. There's no way to get around it. So you either mine that, refine that, or you have to pay for it in the store that they offer with real money. So that is what kind of hinders everyone's progress, is obtaining those materials. I think I think I've covered just about everything on the materials. Again, it's so difficult because there's so much that goes into this game.
I think you did. I think you did a very good job of covering everything. So, just to do a quick wrap up, some of the things that you need to mine or get: par steel, dilithium, titanium, 2, 3, 4-star or gas crystal, decoded and corrupted data, and then latinum. So you have a ton of materials that either you need or you want to mine depending on the type of event. And then you refine some of these materials, and then you use them and spend them to upgrade your ships and crew.
Correct. Yep.
Very kind of basic wrap up.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And exactly as I said, we could spend a 2 or 3 part episode, 3-part series just talking about mining and refining alone.
That's true. All right, but let's jump into timelines. I've played timelines a lot before I even knew about Fleet Command, mainly because I was just starved for Star Trek content.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what drew me to it. Yes.
So effectively, the premise of timelines is that it's set after the events of both Nemesis and Star Trek Voyager. And when you first log into the game, you are greeted by none other than Q, who tells you that there is a temporal anomaly crisis. Hint, if you've never watched Star Trek before, it happens all the freaking time. And so what happens is that people, places, objects from all sorts of timelines are melded into one. So the content that is in timelines is based on the original series, the animated series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Discovery, Enterprise, Short Treks, and Picard. So the content is constantly being upgraded to include the latest and greatest of canon that is published by owners of Star Trek. When I started playing, there was no Discovery, there was no Picard. And the people that you play with are your crew. First of all, it's a ship, or it's given the impression that you are the captain of your ship. And you have to get crew members. Crew members come in 5 different formats: 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star. The 1-star are the most common and the easiest to upgrade. 5 stars are we call the epics and the hardest to upgrade. And so there was content not only of various episodes, like particular episodes that you can have of a particular character. For example, Q, there's, I believe, 12 iterations of Q. One of those was Q as God in the episode where Star Trek, The Next Generation, where Picard dies, or a death fake out, one of the many death fake outs in Star Trek The Next Generation. He dies because of his faulty heart, and that was the reason for that was he got stabbed by a Nausicaan right through the heart over a game of Damjat. In any case, he chooses to change his past and become a more mellow, stay out of the fray kind of sheltered individual, which screwed up his timeline because he was meant for command as not being a science officer. So he went back to Q, and Q fixed everything the way it was supposed to be fixed. However, that character, the Q God character, it's one of the playable characters in this game. So you have a crew complement, and you gather shards by either going to the time portal, which is where you can spend different types of currency. It's either merits or credits. Credits are the most common types of currency that you can get. Merits are a little less common. Kind of like with Fleet Command, you have par steel is very common, dilithium, not as common. In any case, you get shards of characters, and so if you have multiple shards of these characters, you can upgrade them for however many stars you need to upgrade them for. For example, if you have a 3-star Spock, for example, Talos 4 Spock from the original series episode The Cage that kicked off Star Trek, not officially, but that was the original pilot. It requires 3 of those Spocks in order to get you the full complement. So what happens is when you try to upgrade a character, there are 4 components that you have to attach to a character, and they have to be built out of basic components. And so you have to go through missions. Those missions, you have to use your characters to gather, be it clothing, be it phasers, be it tricorders, that you need to combine into other types of tricorders or clothing or phasers so that you can attach to your characters so that you can upgrade them. And then the easiest way to upgrade them is either to train them or to have them go through missions. So every character can go from level 1 to 100. Once you get to level 100 of one of your characters and they're fully upgraded and they're fully like combined, if you will, if you have the correct amount of stars, what you can do is you can hide them in your vault. So there's like a temporal frozen type of vault where you can remove them from your crew complement, but then they could be available later on. You cannot do this with any other character unless they have been fully what's called immortalized, meaning they have all their componentry and they have all their levels all the way upgraded. So obviously you can tell that the people with the 5-star character levels are going to be very hard to upgrade. Any case, so these characters can do a couple things for you. They can go on missions. So you start out with a certain amount of shuttles, and you can buy more shuttles with either uncommon credits or dilithium. Dilithium is the premium currency, so that you have to pay real money for. And so there are, I believe right now, 15 different faction missions that you can go on. That includes the Federation, Klingons, Romulans, Cardassians, Ferengi. There's the Dominion, the Borg, Hirogen, Section 31, Klingon Cardassian Alliance, Terran Empire, Romulan Star Empire, Augments, Ferengi Traditionalists, Ferengi Alliance, Maquis, and the Bajorans. Each one of these, you send some of your crew to go on a mission. Now, they have a certain success rate, so sometimes they can come back and you don't get anything. But if they do come back and it's a success, you get more shards and more materials for you to upgrade. So again, this game is more for someone who's more solitary. You have your things, your stuff can never go away. You come back, you can play it anytime you want. So then obviously, as with any online game, there's dailies. There are daily cadet challenges, which give you various things, including chronotons. And chronotons are a type of currency that you can use to go on missions. And certain missions that your crew goes immediately on, and then there's the shuttles that your crew goes on, and they're unavailable for a few hours. So it's a time-based part too. So the regular missions you go through to unlock new sections and new weapons and new materials to upgrade your crew. And then same thing kind of happens, so you can gather more and more reputation with your different factions. Now you can get, now I am technically, in my account, I am honored with all the factions. That took a while to do that, but I am honored with all the factions. So every faction has its own faction store. You can buy componentry from either uncommon materials or dilithium, which is the premium in-game currency. Next, you have the arena, and that is basically the PvP version of what you can do, one of the PvP versions which you can do with ship battles. And I have to say that some of these ship battles are really cool looking. There's 3 different divisions. There's the commander division, the captain, and the admiral. They take into account different types of ships. So your ships are also in the commander division. You can only use 2-star ships, and then in the captain division you could use up to 4-star ships, and then the admiral only 5-star ships or 4-star ships. And you have to put a certain crew on your ship because every crew member gives you a different ability. And so you have to think of what strategy would work best in every division and what ship would work best in every division. That gets you up the rankings. And so at the end of every day, once you're ranked in each division, you get certain ship parts that you can build more ships and better ships. And so the battles themselves are timed. They are 170 seconds, which is almost 3 minutes. Battles usually never last that long. But depending on your ability, on your character abilities, you can either win easily, you can have a prolonged battle, and it's really timed. So if you really want to win, you have to make sure you hit the right characters at the right times. And there's 3 different types of abilities. There's red, which is attack. Your attack is increased. There's yellow, which is your accuracy is increased. And then there's blue, which means your dodge or your shields are increased, or you can cloak. They don't last for very long. I think the max I've seen is like 18 seconds that one of these abilities lasts. Some abilities are only a number of abilities per battle, and some abilities are you can use continuously as long as the battle keeps going. But there is a cooldown period. Another PvP aspect would be the Gauntlet, which is a 24-hour PvP, your specific characters based on traits and other players and their characters based on their traits. So there are, I believe, 6 or 7 different traits. You could be crafty or scoundrel or costume. It depends on the character traits of the individual. And there are about 300, 400 characters you can choose from for these gauntlet battles as well as your ship battles. And then you have your rewards. So you can use either materials for the componentry for your rewards, your credits, your merits, or you can use dilithium to get premium rewards, meaning you get better crew. Subsequently, there are packs that you can buy. There's a $10 pack every event, there's a $25 pack every event, and then there's a $100 pack every event. And you're not forced to buy them to do the events, and the events happen every 3 to 4 days. But these packs help give you the crew that is best suited for those events. Now, sometimes those events are repeated, and the crew that you bought you already have, so you don't need to buy it again, or you can in order to upgrade. And in those events, your rewards are that crew. So if you're missing 1 star of your 4-star crew member and you only got 3 stars, then you can get that 4th star and then fully upgrade that character, and then you could either immortalize them or continue to upgrade them when you need to. And then you have the really cool part, which is a really good homage to Star Trek, is they have the Dabo Wheel. If anybody knows anything about Dabo, it is a game. It's a gambling game hosted by the Ferengi, kind of like a roulette table, if you will. And it is featured very prominently in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, as Kirk is the owner of the bar. Dabo Wheel is a fixture of gambling, and you get to see the Dabo girls. Ida becomes a very important person in DS9 as she marries Rom. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched Deep Space Nine. Effectively, there are, I believe, 14 different prizes that you can get. You can get Dabo, and you get a 5-star character. You can get 2 4-star characters. You can get a 4-star item. And you can get ship parts and some common items like clothing or messages to upgrade your characters. I'll tell you, I played the game for a very long time, and I've only gotten 1 Dabo. Out of all the times that I've ever played, I've only gotten 1 Dabo. You spin it once for free, and then you could spend dilithium to spin it more times. What happens is, if you spin it more times, the parts that you've already won get grayed out, so you can't win them again. So if you spend enough dilithium, you can get all the rewards for that day. That gets kind of expensive on the dilithium side. And then finally, there's a feature called a voyage. So you take one of your ships, you take 1, 2, 3, 12 different crew members, 2 per ability, which is it is medical, science, engineer, tactical, diplomacy, and command. You take those out of your pool of characters and you send them on a voyage. The interesting thing about the voyage is you start with a certain amount of, I guess, antimatter. And this antimatter, you run out of antimatter as you go through the voyage. And so every 2 hours, there is a break that you get certain rewards. Now, if your ship doesn't reach that 2-hour threshold, you will lose that entire voyage, or you spend dilithium to restart your antimatter again. And so that has a timed aspect of I'm going through. I hit my 2-hour checkpoint, everything's good, and then I can recall and if I recall the ship, it doesn't cost any more antimatter to come back home. And then you can gain a certain amount of rewards, chronotons, character, keep on going. So I think that is kind of a succinct overview. I may have ran a little long, but that's basically the gameplay of Star Trek Timelines.
I think we can both agree that both of these games, whereas I would say that Fleet Command is a little more time, well, a little more is being conservative as complete gameplay, covering all your bases, doing your dailies, mining your resources, doing the events. There's plenty to do in there, and each portion of it, there's some depth to it. So we could spend all day talking about this stuff, but I think that you've done a good enough job of giving the basics, which is what we're after here, and letting people know what's going on. The only thing that I would add, as far as the currencies, and I'm sure we'll get talking about that here in a second, in Timelines, for example, the Dabo wheel, your extra spin per day, not only can you spend dilithium on it, but you have the option to watch a 30-second ad for an extra spin. Whereas in Fleet Command, there are no advertisements.
You're very right about that. Not only that, but you can also scan for some materials, and you can get extra scan for watching a 30-second ad or a minute ad or however long the ad is.
Right.
So yes, there are in-game ads and timelines that get you extra stuff. That's a way that Timelines mitigates the packs that you are offered with the ads that you watch, because obviously the advertising model.
Right, yeah. So I just want to talk a brief second about the in-game stores, some of the differences. As anybody knows that's played any sort of mobile game, rarely are you going to find any mobile game that doesn't have microtransactions. It's kind of the way it is now. Even some console games now, a lot of console games are going to the microtransactions to gain what you need in the game. The one thing that I will say, and I have played both, that it seems as though in Timelines, and this is no negative, I don't mean to be negative or cast any shade, so to speak, over any developers or any company, but it does seem as though in Timelines, the materials that you purchase, it seems like, for lack of better terminology, there's a better bang for your buck when you spend real money in the game. So what do you think about that?
Yes, you're right to an extent. Right? So in Timelines, when you spend real money, you get 1-star officers, or depending on your packs, right? So as opposed to Fleet Command, those level of packs never disappear. It's always, every event is a $10 pack, a $25 pack, a $100 pack. And then there are specials that are run throughout the week or throughout the month where you can buy, 10 pulls of the time portal for $10. You can purchase it only twice, or you can buy a character for $9.99. That's a special. Is those never go away. And so all the time that you buy these characters, you can use them all the time for either missions or for various events. And you get chronotons and credits as well. So credits you can pay for other things, and chronotons on more missions, because there are events where you have to go through these missions. You have to go on the same certain missions over and over and over again to get certain materials so that you can, I guess, refine these materials into certain things that get you points in the game. So this is very useful for people who either run low on chronotons. They recharge up to a certain point every day. Like, for example, I'm level 71. I get 214 chronotons until I use them all, right? However, I'm at a point where I have 24,000 of them. So 214 isn't really going to break the bank. If I look at a $10 pack, for example, for $10, I can get a 4-star or one of 4-star Janeway, 2 event packs that I could buy, or not buy, but it comes with it, where I can get either 3 crew members associated with that event. And then there are 250,000 credits and 300 chronotons. So that's, in timelines, if you know anything about timelines, that's actually a really good deal. Because not only do I guarantee myself one of the 4-star Janeways that I can use for the event, but I also have a time portal pull where I can get another one of 4-star Janeway and then another one of 4-star Janeway in those pulls.
Right. Right, yeah. So, and to touch on that, like I said, you know more about timelines than I do. To go to with Fleet Command, the way that the pays are structured, as I said, you have earlier as we were talking about the materials that you have to get. You can buy these packs that have various materials in them. Now, the problem is you may need just this uncommon gas that you're trying to upgrade your, like I said, my Centurion, and I need 500 of it. And you can get it in the store, but it comes in a $100 pack with a bunch of resources that I don't need. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm essentially paying $100 when I only need this particular resource right here. And the packs do change as you level up. So when you first start the game, you'll have packs that are 99 cents. You'll have packs that are $5. You'll have packs that are 10, 20, 50, and some of them are even 100 when you first start. As you level up and as you spend money, the ability to get the lower level packs, the least expensive ones, the $20 and the $50, those begin to go away. So for example, if you were to look in my store right now, because I'm almost level 32, and yes, I have spent a little bit of change on it, not like some of these other guys, but I have. The only pack that's available, I can tell you right now, is like a peace shield pack, so that I can get a bunch of shields so I don't get raided when I'm offline. So it changes what's available to you, and what's available to you also changes based upon your faction levels and your ability to get various ships. So for example, if you have to get to X amount of reputation with the Romulans, they won't offer you the blueprints for the ship that you want to build until you get to that reputation point. You can't spend regular money on it. You have to achieve that in game and grind for that reputation. Then they'll say, okay, now you can spend real money on it. So it does change as you progress. So not everything is available to the same people. For example, if you and I were to compare our stores right now, I would have much more expensive stuff probably than what's available in yours. And of course, vice versa. So for me, when they run ship events, I can buy blueprints to some of these big epic ships because I'm getting close to that level. And since you're a much lower level and you're not there in the faction reputation as high as I am, and you're not at the level where you can build that ship, they're not going to offer that to you. So it does change in Fleet Command, and it's something it's hard to describe because sometimes it doesn't make sense. One day something will be available and the next day it'll be gone, it'll be available to other people, but it won't be available to you. But you haven't really done anything. You haven't gone up in level. You haven't gone up in faction reputation with anyone. You haven't made any big changes. So it's kind of hard for me to put my hand on. I'm sure someone along the way has figured it out that's been playing longer than I have, but it's difficult to keep track of for sure.
And I agree. And that kind of segues us into customer support, right? Because we all enjoy Star Trek. At least, hopefully, most of the people here that are listening to this enjoy Star Trek. And so I've had very positive experience with Timelines and their support staff. They've always been very to the point in answering my questions. They have given me some freebies just for asking them questions, and I generally have nothing bad to say about them. What's been like your experience with Fleet Command support?
It's been mixed. You'll hear some horror stories out there, just like anything. I mean, you order a package from Amazon, it doesn't show up, and then you may have an issue when you're talking to customer support. It's going to go on anywhere. So anybody listening that may work for a particular company or any representing agency or anything like that, this is not to chastise anyone. This is not to call anyone out and say you're horrible and you have a terrible business model. It's simply just to talk about my personal experiences. So I had an experience where there was a glitch. For example, there's been a glitch, and I'm sure you've seen it, where there are things in the game called armadas, and the armadas are like, you have these computer hostile ships that just kind of float around, and when you blow them up, you can get some rewards from it, some materials, and based on if it's a faction ship, you can increase your faction level with certain factions by defeating other faction ships. Well, they have a similar thing with armadas, and armadas are basically, it's like a star base, and based on the level of it is how difficult it is to destroy. And it's not just for you to fight alone. When you set the armada, you have to spend what's called armada directives. And when you spend those armada directives, based upon your level and how high you are, depends on how many ships you can host. So for example, where I'm at right now, my armada control center is level 31. I can host 5 people in my armada, including me. So when I set one, 4 other people from my alliance can join me. And based on our combined power levels of our ships and the crew abilities that we have, yes, the crews that you can crew your ships. That's something else I forgot to mention, that you can crew your ships. Each crew has a certain attack, defense, health, and they also have certain abilities. Like some may cause a hull breach. Some may have a chance of causing the ship to burn, like Nero. And based on your combat effectiveness, you can defeat these armadas and you get back tokens. You have uncommon, rare, and epic armadas. And once you obtain X amount of these tokens, you can go into the Alliance store there and you can trade in those tokens for a chance to pull various resources, ship blueprints, faction credits that you can use to buy things in the faction store. And they've had a glitch that's been going on now. I've been told by support that it is something that they're actively working on, but when you set an armada, a little banner pops up, and it'll have your alliance tag. It's kind of like a clan tag from Call of Duty or something. 3 or 4 letter tag so it shows what team you're on. And when you set an armada, a little flag pops up with the countdown of when the armada is going to start. They've had a glitch where let's say, for example, I see an armada. I don't see that anyone has set an armada at that location. So I set my armada. Then a minute or 2 later, a tag pops up, and come to find out, another alliance has already set an armada at that location. So I've essentially just wasted this in-game currency, because once they defeat that armada, I can't get refunded those armada tokens. So I had to send in a ticket, and the first one I sent in, I got a very generic, I don't know how else to describe it, but a very smiley face customer service response where it was just kind of beating around the bush, didn't really answer my question. And I sent in another one and I said, hey, look, I don't mean to sound flippant, but you guys did not answer my question. You closed the ticket out, and all I'm asking for, since it's a known glitch, it's something that you have admitted, can I please have and at this point, I can only keep track of, I have 400 that I'm out. can I have those back? Because I feel like I was cheated out of those, and I had to work hard in the game to get that currency. And I finally did get a good response, and the person that responded said, look, we understand. It's something that we're actively working on right now, so we're not in a position to refund any tokens because we don't quite know what's going on, and it's hard for us to track. We're still trying to figure that out. So I've had answers like that where it depends on the person that answers, just like anything else. You call customer service. It depends on the person who answers, their knowledge, how long they've been there, and if they're in the know, like maybe this person sitting next to them. And it's been mixed. There are a lot of horror stories where there have been glitches where people have put up a peace shield and then they come back and their peace shield's still active, but they've been raided and all their stuff's gone. I did hear one of the people in my team send in a ticket about it, and lo and behold, they said, yep, we see where you had a shield up, and they gave him all his resources back. So that was nice. And I have seen that happen too. So again, I think it depends on the person that you're dealing with when you send in a support ticket, just like anything.
I'm with you there because somebody in my alliance had the same thing happen to them. They put up a 24-hour peace shield, and he wakes up, 12 hours later or whatever it was when he checked his game. He's like, all of his part of his resources are gone, and he's still being actively raided. And he's just like, what is going on? So yeah, he sent a ticket into Scopely customer support, and he got his resources back because it's part of their glitch. But I've also had issues where I sent tickets. I personally have sent tickets in over a memory leak issue where I couldn't select. I was trying to raid a base at some point, and I couldn't move my ships properly. Or let me put it this way: I knew where my ships were going because I had an internal clock in my head, but the game didn't show anything. So like the game never showed my ships leaving the dock or coming back. And it wasn't until the action was completed that the ship went from my base to somebody else's base back to my base. Until that action wasn't completed, the events never showed. And so there's a time where I was actively raiding somebody. And what I didn't notice was someone else had already hit me and actively raiding me while I was raiding somebody else.
Stuff like that definitely happens.
And it wasn't even to the point where the only reason that I knew it was happening was because all of a sudden, if I zoom in onto my station, there was a peace shield around it. So if you zoom in and out of your station and you have a peace shield, you could see that the peace shield silhouette is on it, as opposed to when it's not, it's not. And so I was really confused because I didn't activate a shield. There was a shield silhouette, and I see ships coming out of my base, and so like I put up an actual shield, and I closed the game and I turned the game on, and it was still glitching. I sent a ticket to customer service, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you." And ticket.
And it comes back to, again, it depends on who you're talking to, and I guess how hard they want to work. People like that all over. But the one thing that I will have to say in defense of Fleet Command is that game there's so much more going on in that game than there is in Timelines. There's so many more moving parts. I mean, you're talking about the difference between, to me, I could equate it to the difference between a bicycle and a motorcycle. There's a lot more moving parts to Fleet Command because there are so many different aspects of the game. So if anybody's played any game, I always like to compare it to a Bethesda game like Skyrim or Fallout, or a huge world environment, so much going on, so many options, so many abilities, so many different traits and things that are going on. It is so hard to find every single glitch in a game like that. And I've never worked in the video game industry, but I do understand that there's a lot that goes into that. Multiple teams working on different aspects of the game. So these things are going to happen. There's going to be some stuff like that happens. Where the big problem comes in, where a lot of people have issues, is if let's say I get low on a particular resource, and I say, you know what, I've got some extra money laying around, I'll go ahead and buy this pack, and it'll give me the resources I need. I put up a peace shield. Then the next day, someone's raided me and taken all my stuff while my shield was up. Well, not just in-game stuff was taken from me. You can equate that to I've literally been robbed. Someone's taken actual money that I spent. It's not that I just got it through gameplay. I actually paid for these resources. And they're gone because of a glitch. And that's the frustrating part. And I think that for the most part, people, they get so upset that it happened, they just want to attack whoever picks up the phone, whoever answers that ticket. And yes, it's frustrating that sometimes it seems like people aren't listening to you. We have to understand that the support staff, they're not the ones who coded this stuff. And even the ones who coded this stuff, they didn't intend for that to happen. And it is very frustrating, and I have had something like that happen to me, where I recalled a ship, and the ship was supposed to be on its way home, and all of a sudden it said it was in combat, and somebody blew up my ship. And I was like, "What? This thing's supposed to be at warp. What the heck's going on here?" So those things do happen. So if you do end up playing the game, if you're not already a person playing Fleet Command, I would encourage you to remember that it is a very, very, very intricate game, and that these mistakes can happen, these glitches can happen. It's a computer. Computers break all the time.
You're absolutely right. And it's hard to rail on customer service because you don't know who these people are, and they have the unenviable job of hearing everybody's complaints. And sometimes they're very powerless to do anything about it. You're right that Command has more, I want to say, I don't know the technical term, but it's got more connections to failure because of the nature of the PvP kind of gameplay. Whereas Timelines is very static and it's got very defined connections and how things are supposed to roll. It's very different from Command, where you have every coordinate on an XY plane can be selected and moved to within a certain system. And that's definitely more computational connections that have to occur. And so any one of those computations would be corrupted, if you will, based on somebody else's code, which is understandable. And everybody's yelling about certain glitches here and there. And it's hard to really keep track of that from a bug management perspective, as well as trying to refund people and things. And you don't want to refund too much because then people are going to send in fake tickets just to get freebies, which I'm sure happens in many games.
Exactly. There has to be an understanding that you can't just send in a ticket and something's automatically going to happen. I mean, it's going to have to be looked into because this game, in and of itself, is a free-to-play game, guys. There are no pop-ups that happen in Star Trek Fleet Command. There is no ad that's just going to pop up out of nowhere while you're playing. So, at its core, it's a free-to-play game. They rely on microtransactions to fund the game. So, it's not like Angry Birds or some of these other games where the random ads can happen and they use that to offset the cost of the game. There are no ads in this game. They make their money off microtransactions. So that's definitely something that has to be kept an eye on from their point because, again, that's how they bring home their bacon. So just make sure you keep that in mind if you're going to download this and check it out. Sometimes you might have a couple frustrating things happen, but it's just kind of part of the gameplay. And those of us that have been playing for a long time, I've been playing this game for over a year, I've definitely had those happen. It's just something you have to try to work with customer support and move through.
Which game do you think is more tribute to Star Trek?
I would definitely say Timelines. As I said earlier, Fleet Command seems to me to be a Star Trek skinned, I think you've said it before, Star Trek skinned real-time strategy game. It's fun. There are some cool things in there that they touch on that, first of all, I don't know if we covered this, but Star Trek Fleet Command is set in the newer, quote-unquote, Kelvin timeline. So that's what you're dealing with in that game. Whereas Timelines is more of kind of the original canon, with the original series and animated series and Deep Space Nine and so forth. I think that in Timelines, to me it seems like maybe whoever was behind the helm there is more of a Star Trek fan, because who would think of Talos for Spock? as far as I can remember, there were only 2 episodes, like you say, the pilot, but then there was also the episode where Spock more or less hijacked the Enterprise and was bringing it to, correct me if I'm wrong, bringing it to Talos so that Pike could live not in the large drink machine that he was in. So
it was technically a 2-parter. So if we are counting, then it would be 3 episodes.
Well, there you go, 3 episodes. But my point is that it's not just Spock. You have Talos for Spock, then you have Commander Spock, and then you have all the various iterations that
Spock from the movies.
Exactly, you have all these different Spocks that you can work with, the different rarity levels. And so, to me, if you are a diehard Star Trek fan, I definitely think Timelines is at the very least, even if you're not that into gaming, at the very least, it's worth checking out, because I think you'll like what they've done with how they've kept things it's almost like it was definitely created specifically for Star Trek fans. Whereas Fleet Command, you don't even really have to like Star Trek, to me, to even enjoy the game.
Or even know Star Trek.
Exactly. I think you could reskin it with just about anything, and I think it would still be an enjoyable game with all the things that are going on.
To your point, there are no Kelvin elements in Timelines.
Correct. There are no Kelvin elements in Timelines. And again, you would know better than me. I think I log into Timelines once a month when I'm bored. I don't play it very much anymore.
Just nerdy about it. There are 894 individual characters that you can get as crew on your ship in Timelines.
And whereas in Fleet Command right now, I think there are less than 100 crew members.
Yeah, I don't know if we've even hit 100 yet. Probably about 50 characters.
Yeah. So, and again, each one has their own ability. You can level them up to make them more powerful, and they raise your ship stats and abilities. But as far as characters go, there are a lot more playable characters and usable characters in Timelines.
Actually, one of my best characters in Star Trek Timelines is actually based on the comic tie-ins with Star Trek, and that is Mirror Jean-Luc Picard. And he looks like a buff, ripped dude with the Terran towel hanging over his waist, a dagger, and a giant gun on his shoulder.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's sleeveless, isn't he?
He is sleeveless. Very good. He's got some really buff arms. That's the Jean-Luc Picard you do not want to cross.
Yeah, dude's pretty jacked.
So there are actually Star Trek Online original characters within game. Like, I believe one of them is an assimilated Geordi LaForge. It's never happened in canon before, but it's just native to Timelines. And there are comic book tie-ins of some of the characters as well. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Anybody who is just a Star Trek nerd, and I use the term with affection because I'm a Star Trek nerd.
Oh, I am too. That's why we're doing this podcast.
I guess you're right. So if you're a total Star Trek nerd, Timelines is definitely pays homage to all the series, and it's got more and more content coming out every week. Doesn't your wife play Timelines too?
My wife does play Timelines, and I think she is in the 50s, level 50s right now. She still plays that. I tried to get her into Fleet Command because I really wanted her to. It'd be really cool if we could play in the same alliance, and she played it for about 5 minutes, and she goes, "There's too many moving parts. I'm not playing this," and she uninstalled it. So she's. At least I have her playing a Star Trek game, and at least she's able to share with me in our mutual interest and love in the Star Trek universe. So I got lucky there.
That's good. My wife likes to watch Star Trek with me, and we've probably seen all the episodes together. It runs on Heroes and Icons constantly.
I'm a huge original series fan. I finally got. Was able to. I finally caught her the other day. She started watching the original series, so I kind of enjoyed that.
Wrap things up. If you are a casual gamer or just a casual aficionado of Star Trek, I would say that Timelines would be the game for you. It still takes a little bit to get the hang of things, but once you get the hang of it, it's steady state. You log in for maybe an hour to a day just to do your dailies and keep on going. And then if you're more of a hardcore gamer or you like the aspect of PvP and you like the aspect of lots of moving parts and lots of things and all these things that have to be done in a certain timeline, then probably Fleet Command would be the game for you. I think.
Absolutely. I would still say that if you do have the time, give it a try. And just real quick, so we're not talking you guys' ears off, I originally started playing Fleet Command. And I basically I was sitting there watching Star Trek one day, and I was just kind of craving more content. And so I just went on my app store. I said, I wonder if there's like a little mobile game that I can play, some kind of time killer. And Star Trek Fleet Command was the first one that came up. I started playing it, and I played it for a little while. I got up to like level 15 or 16, and then I kind of just fell off. I didn't really play it anymore. I started playing Timelines, and then I can't exactly tell you why, but I decided to start playing Fleet Command again, and I actually got into it. And that's when I stopped playing Timelines. And again, I couldn't tell you why. I would highly recommend giving it a shot. If you don't like it, no harm, no foul. It's not like you have to spend any money on it to check it out. But if you do like it, then I encourage you to talk to some of the people who have been playing the game for a while, because there are a lot of things that I know now that I wish I would have known then, and where I've wasted time, money, resources, things like that. So get to know some of the people that are higher levels in your server. And for those of you, as we said on the our last episode, we're in server 34. So if you're there, feel free to look me up. I'm in most. You can find us in the leaderboards, and I'm Strange Kirk there as well. And my partner here is also there. I don't know if he wants to tell you where he is.
Do I really need to tell you where I am? People can find me. Just post it on my channel so they can find me.
They can probably find you when they leave their shield down.
There you go. There you go. Search for my base. I'm somewhere in either Klingon or Federation or Romulan space.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Kirk, this has been great. I think people have been completely bored to death of Timelines and Fleet Command.
I think so. And I think one thing I'd like to add before I forget, don't forget, if there's something that you want to hear about, please leave us a comment. Let us know, because this isn't just a Star Trek Fleet Command podcast. This is a Star Trek podcast. So if there's any suggestions, I'm open to hearing.
As am I. And we have a few great guests scheduled to come on our show very soon.
We do. I'm not going to mention any names, but one of
them.
No,
let's not do that.
We're not going to mention any names, but one of these people that we are trying to get on has more of a piracy style of playing. So that's going to be fun to hear from.
Absolutely. Keep subscribed to our channel and look for any more updates. And if not, you can always chat with us in-game, either in Timelines or Star Trek Fleet Command. As always, this has been Talk with Tech and Kirk. I'm TechMan16.
And I'm Strange Kirk.
Until next time.